Thank you so much for the introduction. And thanks for coming back here after what I believe has been a hearty and a lovely lunch. We hope to keep you awake and also evoke some thoughts and questions. Being in the field, I myself had several questions. So, taking the opportunity of being on this panel with my eminent co panelists, I have the privilege of asking them these questions and getting clarity of thoughts. So, Sandeep ji, allow me to begin with you. Well, it is said that cybercrime is a threat only for big corporations. Is that a myth? And then what's the reality for small and medium businesses?
Well, Niranjan ji, this is definitely a myth. We all know the way the cybercrime has, say, initiated across the globe. I mean, if I talk about the history, because I think I would be the most senior most person in this panel age-wise, and I have been investigating these cases for the last maybe now 37 years. The first case which I handled about cyber security was, I think, in the year 2001. Right, at that point in time also, I mean, it pertained to a very large, say, organization. It was a SBA subsidiary. But over the years, definitely, I mean, the cybercrime focus has been shifted. With the introduction of digital banking and the digital banking frauds have emerged. And at the moment, what I say, the individuals are also not very safe as far as the cybercrime is concerned. You would be seeing that actually the local confectioners or the local, say, shopkeepers are also falling prey to the cybercrime. Many a times they are victims, they are not even aware about it, but suddenly when the police knocks their doors, they become aware that actually they have been either the victims of fraud or their accounts have been hacked or misused by the fraudsters to siphon off the money. And they become accused in those cases. So this is the paradigm shift, I think, over the last many years. And again, I will say it is a myth.
Okay. Turning to you, Naveen, what in your opinion are the most significant myths in your opinion and belief, which are the most significant myths that hinder our efforts to combat cybercrime?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Niranjan sir. So there are two myths. One is, in case if I start with, the first myth is the customers who are low profile or the customer who are wealthy are the vulnerable segment and fraudsters are targeting those. That is a myth which traditionally we have. But today, in case if we see, the educated professionals are also equally vulnerable for this segment. The concept which we all are aware, most of us are aware of, GTH, greed, threat and help. So greed is one concept wherein it is not limited to any particular segment, greed, class, demographic, correct? So most of that traditional myth of vulnerable segment identification by the fraudsters have now been changed. Everyone is equally vulnerable in present world. That is first. Second is our existing traditional fraud prevention mechanisms which we used to have are good enough to address or to counter future frauds. Classic example, most of our banks today, for fraud mitigations we evolve, and now for transaction confirmation with the customer we move to IVR validations, correct? However, that IVR validation, when some call went to a customer, so it is asking whether you have done this transaction, yes or no, and classic 1 or 2, case closed. However, today the 90% of the fraud is self-initiated by the customers. When we are saying self-initiated by the customer, then that use case which we have developed, yes or no, is not equally or adherently addressing our problem. Then what is required to have is, we require to have probing techniques. Whether this particular transaction is related to some investment or you are in the middle of digital arrest, so some kind of additional probing to be inserted. So these are the two myths which I personally foresee, which is an hindrances in our fraud prevention now.
So you're saying a customer could be either active or passive victim to a fraud. He might have unwillingly aided or abetted by
Yes.
parting with certain information.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Bhavin, going by your expertise and arcane area of specialization, I wanted to ask you, are all data breaches caused by hackers, or do internal threats and human error also play a part than we care to admit?
Thank you for this question. In my view, uh, human errors is and the mistakes which are done, that plays a pretty large role. The kind of sophistication most of the BFSI organizations have today, the kind of controls that they have, most of the frauds or hackers who are trying to attack, they would be mitigated by the controls which are in place. However, if there is a huge misconfiguration which happens, for example, Microsoft admitted that some 38 trillion bytes of data was out on GitHub because of some error which was done, right? So it was a completely human error which happened because of which the exposure happened. So even organizations of that size and the kind of resources that they have, even after that, if such things happen, then it can be attributed quite a bit to human errors which happen. So having said that, if you keep your door open while you are asleep in the night, you are going to see thieves coming in, you are going to see
Even if
rodents
it is
coming in.
ajar, not just open, even if it is ajar, if there is a crack open, then
Absolutely.
I think the bad guys and bad girls will exploit it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow. Uh, we keep hearing, folks, that monies that get siphoned off from cyber crimes often translate or transfer themselves into cryptocurrency. So, Akhil, my question, next question would be to you, that with the rise of cryptocurrency, how has financial fraud adapted, and how are regulators and companies responding to that?
Sure. So thank you for the question. Um, a very good afternoon to everyone. I think with cryptocurrencies, the nuance that we are dealing with is anonymity. So that gets played into the cyber frauds which happen. Uh, any fraud that you find in the scheme of capital markets or banking, that connotation also gets extended to cryptocurrencies in a way. So you have frauds related to um, initial crypto offerings, right? So that is one kind of fraud wherein people would come up with crypto offerings which are fraudulent. Another thing which is very obvious is the ransomware. So use of cryptocurrencies for paying ransoms in a ransomware kind of scenario. That is one more fraud that creeps up. There are also cases where you've got slip of the rugs kind of scenarios wherein the crypto platforms are built, and then once investors come on this platform, invest money, um, one fine day these platforms no longer cease to exist, right? So all these frauds are also there to deal with. Um, Having said that, I think in terms of the regulator indulgence in this topic, I think India uh, doesn't really encourage cryptocurrency, doesn't really recognize cryptocurrency as a formal tender of exchange. But then 30% of taxation is there on the income, crypto income that you have. Also, there are TDS, there's TDS which is levied on the transactions. So I think we are in a gray area in terms of India's regulatory stand on the cryptocurrency part, right? So that's where we are, I think.
I was reading, there was a snippet that I got on my mobile phone yesterday. Didn't get time enough to get into details of the news, but it seems that even China has banned bitcoins for whatever it is worth.
I mean, one of the thought processes was that the government wanted to, promote their own cryptocurrency, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's one
Okay.
nuance.
Splendid. Thank you for the insights. Appreciated. Sandeep ji, my next question would be to you, owing to your long experience in managing cybercrime amongst other policing activities. There is a perception that cyber criminals are lone actors wearing a hoodie, hunched over a computer, and probably operating out of some kind of a boiler room or back room. Has the profile of the modern cyber criminal evolved, and how?
You are right, Mr. Niranjan. If you Google a cyber crime on, and the first image you would be getting would be of a person actually wearing a hoodie hunched upon the, say, his laptop or something. But the profile has completely changed. I mean, over the years, if I see, you would have imagined that actually the cyber crime actually started with a small time kind of fraudsters, wherein the picture which we are having in our mind was correct at that point in time. Over the year, I mean, we shifted from small time frauds, then we shifted to credit debit cards, wherein there were different teams who were getting the data from the gullible customers. There were different teams who were making the forged or skimmed cards to operate in the open market and just to siphon off the money. And there were different teams who were using those cards to siphon off. So it was an organized crime at that point in time also. Even in the present scenario, if you see in the digital banking environment, there are, again, this is a completely organized crime wherein different teams are engaged in getting the information and then say transferring it for transfer of money. Then there are different teams of cyber criminals who are siphoning off the money through the mule channel, right? So definitely the profile of a cyber criminal has evolved, and now actually the assumption is even large countries are involved in siphoning of money from other countries. In fact, the digital banking scenario which has changed in India, and you would be aware that actually India is the biggest contributor to the digital payment network. And our neighboring countries are there to get the best use of that through cybercrime. So definitely the profile has evolved.
So you are saying, sir, including state actors, there are far more sinister forces that are now focusing on these crimes, amongst others. Huh?
Even earlier also, I think you would have heard, I mean, if you can Google, there was a large chunk of money actually siphoned off through Swift hack in one of the Indian public sector bank, and also through Bangladesh. That was, I think, in the year 2012 or 13.
Yes.
Again, actually, with the cases which were investigated, the money had actually gone to a neighboring country only.
Indeed. Right. So, taking a cue from what sir has just said, Naveen, my next poser will be for you. You are representing a payment network. So, from the lens of a payment network, what is the current state of fraud and cybercrime in the payments industry, and what methods are fraudsters using to target their victims, and which are the newest forms of phishing or social engineering that organizations should be aware of and watch out for in 2025 and beyond?
Okay, thank you, sir. So to start with, today, basis the fraud reported to the entity which I am representing today, NPCI, what we have observed is 90% of my frauds are today through social engineering. We all are aware of this word, social engineering. The challenge over here is, I go back because I am in fraud management space since 2005. Now we are speaking in 2025. The industry has been evolved. In 2005, when I used to be part of a bank, we received the cases of loss stolen or first party fraud, set up Those are the scenarios. Then we evolve and then we come back to 2010, 11, 12, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then we have this skimming. This is one of the menace, correct, which was there, ATM skimming, card skimming. We have multiple skimming incidences reported within Mumbai, within country. Correct? There are syndicates which are exclusively working on those. Then thereafter the government comes with some more digital securities mechanism, like we have implemented EMV, chip, then that skimming become almost negligible today. So now that social engineering, a new word comes in since last 5-6 years. Erstwhile it is first party fraud, wherein the fraudsters have to invest something, have to participate into fraud, and he has to perform the transaction on the behalf of the customer, correct? When the fraudsters. Today, that paradigm is completely shift. When in my first statement itself, I made this. Today, 90% of the fraud which is reported to us are self-initiated fraud, correct? When I'm saying self-initiated, two problems. One is erstwhile, maximum 1 or 2 transaction, 1 or 2 days, that fraud has been happened, correct? But we have investment scam kind of scenarios wherein we've seen frauds continue to be there for a couple of days, couple of months, correct? And because when we are devising any fraud management technology, so we are more concentrated on how to protect our customer from falling prey to it, correct? But the real problem is the industry still is not concentrated more on credit side monitoring, because ultimately that fraud, defrauded amount is been rotating within the economy, within the banks, within institutions, correct? So most of our risk techniques are today also being inclined towards identifying the customer behavior, victim side monitoring, victim side behavior, profiling, etc. is on the higher side. However, vice versa of it, the problem which arises in last 3-4 years, that is beneficiary account, credit side monitoring. Are we putting the same kind of concentration on credit card monitoring side also? Yes. So no, that is a question which we need to answer today. However, having said this, there are various initiatives which is taken by the government, by banks. The best example we have I4C, we all are aware of. MHA comes up with a concept wherein they created that portal. That portal is doing fantastically good today. Just FYI, because we are discussing before this conclave, with the help of this particular portal, that MHA or I4C in 2024, we are able to safeguard almost 10% of the fraud on real time. When I'm safeguarding the money which already went off. That money was already credited to the fraudsters, but because of the help of that portal or that arrangement, timely bank is able to identify those mule accounts and able to freeze those accounts.
So Naveen, if I'm not interrupting, what you are saying is that somehow the victim is willy-nilly made to be a part of the fraud being perpetrated. There is some call to action which the victim performs, either because they are coerced or they are lured, and therefore the victim themselves become part of the fraud being perpetrated on them. Would I be right?
Yes, sir. 100% you are correct. The victim are part of the fraud. Even, as I said, in our fraud techniques, when we reached down to the customer, initially they said, yeah, this is an authorized transaction. In spite of having that alert that this looked like an investment scam, we are alerting customers that, sir, this is an dicey transaction, this look like a scam. But in spite of all those warning, customers say, no, I want to continue with my account, don't block, not to take any action. And down the time, after 2-3 months, they come back and say, okay, that was a fraud. So these are the real challenges which we are all facing. But yes, of course, the bank, institution, working groups, I4C, MHA, all we are coming together to find up the new techniques and the solutions to avoid this fraud.
Okay. I'm going to pick up the trail where you left off, and I'm going to ask Bhavin. You know, these are the days of the so-called AI and deep fake kind of frauds. So how are these techniques, methodologies being used in cyber fraud today? And are we prepared to counter this menace?
AI and deepfake, they've become quite pragmatic. And the way the enterprises are trying to implement AI, the fraudsters have definitely started using AI. I mean, we, being a company which serves a lot of large corporates for their phishing drills and those kind of requirements, there were times when we were asked that, I need one template of a phishing email to be sent out to customers, to our employees, and we see how they react. Now there have been requirements where they say that, Bhavin, is there a way by which we can do 10 templates? Can we do 12 templates? So that the employees are surprised. There are requirements where they ask us, can we put context, wherein, if a particular user is part of a particular department, is there a way, and we get some data from the LinkedIn profile and add context to it, and then send out a phishing email, right? So those kind of requirements are coming in, and why they are coming in is because the fraudsters started doing that. They have been using a lot of content from your social media, what is there on Google about you, and they are using that content to create a real look-alike email or something which you'll relate yourself with. At the same time, when it comes to deep fake, we are seeing a huge fraud scam which is happening. I mean, various types of scams, including earlier we used to see on a WhatsApp, the display picture of the sender used to be changed by the fraudster, and it would pose as if it's come from the CEO to the CFO or the accounts team that I need to buy a quick voucher, 5,000 rupees for someone. Please do this right now. I'm traveling. The fraudster used to obviously check the Facebook, the Insta, and see if actually they were traveling, they were on a vacation or something like that, and they used to time it like that. What we are now seeing is a WhatsApp email with a display name of the CEO going out to the accounts guy and with a video and an audio of the CEO of 10 seconds that, I'm in an urgency, there's an emergency, and this is the money that you transfer. And one of the recent frauds which I heard was about 4 crore rupees were transferred just because of usage of deepfake in a WhatsApp thing. So it's happening, and it's happening in a big way. In terms of how good are we to be able to pick up such kind of things, I feel there's a lot to do. Be it the awareness that we've been doing to our employees in terms of what they should be doing while they receive an email. Those awareness methods where we tell them that, look at, there are typos, spelling mistakes. I mean, the current phishing emails which the fraudster been sending, they are spot on. Probably they are better written than some of our emails which we write to our employees. So, there's a huge work which needs to be done by organizations to make employees aware of what they should be doing with these kind of growing threats which are coming in. In terms of technical controls, there's a lot to do there as well, right? When something like this is happening over email or other channels, there has to be mechanisms to pick up those things. And when employees are trying to smartly put prompts in this Gen AI platforms, there has to be a control by which things are checked, whether something sensitive is going out through those kind of channels. So I feel there's a lot of work to be done, and we need to be a few more steps ahead of what we are right now.
I think Bhavin is being modest. I have seen some fantastic work being done by him and his team of experts. In the fraud fraternity, we are all friends. There is no competition. That's the best part of it. In business, you may compete against each other, but in terms of fraud fighting, we are all friends. And there are no secrets. So
You mean fraud prevention and not fraud?
absolutely,
Yeah.
in terms of fraud prevention.
Because in fraud, we should not.
Right. Like it is a misnomer, like the crime branch of police. It is actually anti-crime branch. But yeah, when we say fraud, we mean anti-fraud professionals. Thanks for bringing in that perspective. It helps all of us. So they are doing some fantastic work. And like Bhavin explained that, if a company is having an offsite and the head honchos are on foreign shores and using that as an excuse, if somebody is perpetrating a smart kind of fraud by asking the CFO or head of payments to make certain transactions, then in order to test the preparedness of an organization, Bhavin and his team are using the same opportunity of, certain head honchos being away and targeting that organization by way of test. They are creating honeypots, sending emails to certain individuals within the company to see if in the absence or following an event which everybody is aware of, are the employees more prone to accept that bait? Don't ask me which company, but yes, I have seen some fantastic work and have seen certain insights because being members of the same fraternity, we tend to glean learnings. Even if it is a third party, we don't want to be first party all the time to have an experience. We learn through experience, first party and third party. So some really fantastic work is going on. Now, whenever an organization is hit by fraud, Akhil, we have seen that people think that, oh, we have this cover, an umbrella of a cyber insurance. So, is, in your opinion, the availability of cyber insurance encouraging better security practices, or is it, on the other hand, promoting complacency?
Sure. So, I think cyber insurance, what started as a risk transfer mechanism to support you during incident response. The paradigm has shifted much more than that. So now cyber insurance paradigm is covering things like public, public relations, incident response, forensics, also how do we engage with, the government agencies or the external agencies, right? So things like that also get covered in cyber insurance. The business itself, I mean, so today it's what, $80 million business today. And the growth that is seen is around 30% growth. That is what is expected. So that speaks volumes about the need of cyber insurance or demand of cyber insurance from a lot of entities. So that's there. Now, whenever I go to buy cyber insurance, right, I will have to fill a proposal form, okay? And that will have to go through the underwriting team of the cyber insurers, right? Now the underwriting team will look at the portfolio or the, what the structure or all posture of the company that needs to be insured, right? It will see what all good practices, security best practices that you've got. Whether they're aligned with, frameworks like NIST, ISO 27001, so on and so forth. And basis that, they'll make a decision whether you need to be insured to a level. Sorry. Am I audible now? Yeah. Sorry. So, also the premium, I think, will be modulated according to these assessments, right? So, obviously, there is a benefit, there is a value that you would get with cyber insurance, right? It doesn't mean that buying cyber insurance is going to, help you with everything. Okay, there's no silver bullet. It's just that you've got support when it is a DD kind of situation that you're preparing for. It's just like your health insurance, right? I mean, if you go to the health insurer and say that I'm going to smoke and drink, is the health insurer going to, provide you insurance in that case? No, right? It will always promote healthy lifestyle, basis which the insurer is also covered in, how much.
Insurance is a business of good faith.
Yes. So that is what I think about this topic.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Sandeep ji, my next question is for you. What, in your opinion, is the role of employee training that plays in fraud prevention, and is that being taken seriously enough at the board level, at the decision-making level?
Yes, sure. So, I mean, definitely this training is important for everyone. Honestly, because we are dealing in the world of fraud prevention, so definitely the fraud prevention training has to be provided to each and every employee in any of the organization. Reason being because the employees of any organizations are trained to develop business. So they are not hardcore criminals, or I mean, they can't think like a, say, fraudster or something. Now, until and unless they are told actually what is the going practice in the world, definitely, I mean, like it is just like a family also. If you're not telling your children that actually that if you're doing this, actually you could be kidnapped, or you could be, I mean, held, say, captive or something. So definitely that the kids would be feeling free, and I mean, they would be interacting with the criminals as well. At Yes Bank, actually, what we have tried to do, because actually you would be aware with the digital, say, payment expanding in India, in fact, no bank was ready for that. Suddenly, this digital banking was thrust upon us, on the banks specifically. And because it was a government decision, it was, I mean, because during COVID times or even during the demonetization, this was a need of the hour, so the government entrusted this on us. Now, because no bank was aware about what are the nitty-gritties of these kind of, say, payments and what kind of misuse the fraudster can do, no banker was aware about how to prevent the bank or the customers. So what we did in Yes Bank, actually we trained each and every banker, all the branch staff were trained, and now what we have started doing is we are catching the frauds from the beginning only. At the time of opening of the account only, we are doing a complete profile of the customers. We are then, later on actually, each and every transaction is monitored. And that is mandated by the RBI, the regulator, and also by the I4C. So that actually just to curtail these kind of frauds. By the way, I mean, if I'm allowed to tell the numbers, as the I4C is concerned, they declared the fraud numbers of digital banking for the last 3 years, and the amount was mind-boggling 10,730 crore rupees. So you can imagine, I mean, this money, this amount could be the economy of any small country as well. Right? So this is the amount actually the Indian money people are losing. And until and unless the fraud prevention training is given to the employees of any organization, so definitely we would be contributing in expanding these frauds and instead of curtailing them.
Naveen, picking up from where Sandeep ji left the trail, there are aspects that individuals and corporations need to focus on. And in your opinion, do you perceive risks that often get overseen or marginalized and later snowball into significant risks? And what are the biggest mistakes that organizations make, and how can those be avoided?
Hello, is it fine? Yeah, thank you. So the magnitude or the misses which often the institution or the financial institution today are doing, as I already said, most of our risk management tools are there towards the safeguarding the customers, correct? But we often missed the basic system hygiene. When I'm saying basic system hygiene, we are witnessing, every year we are witnessing with a large fraud which is against a particular bank or an entity, when that particular entity is losing multiple crore rupees. In 2023, around Diwali, we witnessed similar kind of incident wherein entities have lost that money. And the reason being because we are missing on this basic system hygiene. The excessive data is there with the vendors, correct? There is no back testing which is happening. There is a back testing, but that back testing is in the real terms, it is not in line with the requirement. The second and the foremost is when there is no proper reconciliation mechanism, correct? There is a need of surge. We might be aware of the surge monitoring kind of scenario, where in case if I have X amount of transaction in an hour and suddenly that X becomes 2X or 3X, there should be an alarm within that particular institution, and that is not limiting for approved transaction. It is equally important for refund, reversal, decline, everything, correct? So we should have a proper mechanism of such kind of monitoring so that on real time or near real time we are able to identify those abnormal trend or the fraudsters who are, because of the technology, they are able to penetrate and misuse at the bank ecosystem, bank level or their infrastructure. That is one. Secondly, we have seen many payment PSP banks, correct, PSP applications, which are still allowing the app to download on jailbroker or jailbroken devices or infected devices, correct? And basic hygiene like RASP is also missing on those PSPs, correct? And all these factors make those applications more vulnerable, and it is easy for fraudsters to compromise those customer data and to defraud the identity.
Thank you. My next question will be for you, Bhavin. In light of what has been shared by our esteemed panelists, how do you foster a strong security culture across the organization, especially amongst the non-technical staff?
That's a tough one. I think having the right culture is really key. And it has to start right at the top. And as it is said, it is not an IT or information security team's issue. It's a business issue, right? So the day your business leaders, the day your business team leads, they start talking that do we have the right controls in the processes, in the technology which is getting implemented. When they start asking those questions is when you can say that, yeah, culturally you are good. Achieving that is really, really difficult. But it has to start at the point when an employee is getting inducted. Be it a training, an induction training that you may have. I think we do a lot of boring kind of trainings, those classroom trainings we do. We do LMS kind of trainings where you'll have some interactive modules which are there. Can you create an immersive kind of an experience for an employee? Can you create a ransomware kind of a scenario, for example, while an employee is doing the induction training, is there a way by which you can get an employee to feel that this is how it would feel if your machine gets infected by a ransomware? And what is it that, what wrong you did, and what is it that you can do to make things better? So, it has to be done in bits and pieces at different times during an employment for...
Unpredictably.
Absolutely. So is there a way by which, use some different means to reach out to employees? I mean, is there a way by which you can have a bite video or an infographic or a game which is sent out to employees over Teams? Right? I mean, Teams is something which is being used by most organizations more for the remote meetings which happen. Is there a way by which you can use that as a channel for reaching out to your employees? Because sending it over emails at times loses interest. They'll have a filter and those mails go into a specific folder, right?
Correct.
So is there a way by which you can innovate there? Is there a way by which you can create, say, an AI video, a video which would interest an employee to see, right? Because the kind of videos, the kind of content which the employees see on social media, it is so beautiful, whereas the kind of content that we disseminate to our employees, that's quite boring, right? So is there a way by which you can do those kind of things? So I think it's very important to have the right culture, because whatever technical controls that you have in an organization, we know that some of those controls may not work at a given point in time, and those emails or some errors may happen, because of which the last line of defense is going to be the employee, the non-technical employee rather, right? So I think it's very important that this is done well, and employees enjoy it to be going through something like this.
Okay. Akhil, my next question is for you. So what is the one myth or misunderstanding about cybercrime that you would wish everyone from CEO to the consumers, to truly understand?
I think the myth that we have done enough, that is the myth that needs to be debunked, right? So the myth that we are all compliant and and then we are not susceptible to a cyber attack or a cyber fraud. That needs to be debunked. I think the myth that the cyber security technologies or controls are going to are going to not be costly. That needs to be debunked. So I think it is very important for boardroom to also understand. In fact, it's the cybersecurity practitioner's job to make them understand that these are the myths that one should not fall for. So as compliance is good, but then a unit or a company, saying that we should be compliance driven, and then if we are compliance driven, then that's about it. I think that is where the confusion starts to play right? And the complacency starts to play.
Okay. So the complacence about compliance needs to go away. Feeling that we are compliant.
And just not being being compliant doesn't mean that you are going to be not going to be hit by a cyber attack. Okay, you can do all the good things in the world. Okay, what needs to be important that you need to assume that one day or another there is going to be a cyber attack, there is going to be a cyber fraud. How can you be resilient and keep going?
Okay, we are nearing the end of time. There is just time enough for me to pose my last question to Sandeep ji, and given his experience with law enforcement, I think he is the right candidate to face this. Sir, do you think that our legal and regulatory framework is evolving fast enough to address the pace of cybercrime innovation?
Well, honestly, and this is purely my own opinion, I think the legal framework has not evolved at all. In fact, I'll tell you a story. Actually, when we were investigating the year 1992 scam, that was the Harsha Mehta scam, that point in time, actually, we were struggling that actually how do we convict this guy, right? There are only 5 sections in the Indian IPC wherein actually any economic offense can be booked. And we have those sections by heart. Similarly, in the year 2001 scam, when it happened, the same 5 sections were used, and you have seen that actually those trials are not even started or concluded as on date. I'm talking about 1992 and 2001.
Pardon my knee-jerk question. Just thought I'll stop you here and ask you, is the BNS, the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, evolved enough to address the issues which the IPC did not? Couldn't resist asking this.
Again, my personal opinion, I mean, it is not aptly covered. Even in the latest, say, the Indian Information Technology Act also, because actually we are talking about the, say, cyber security and all, there are hardly any sections which are having any teeth. So when people are, I mean, when the criminals are not facing any, say, penalty or anything, so it becomes very difficult for the police organizations also to, motivate their staff to get the investigation done in a timely manner. But I'll touch upon the second part of your question about the regulatory framework. So the regulators have evolved like anything, whether it is the RBI, whether it is the I4C, which Naveen actually touched upon. As I was discussing during the lunchtime, I mean, the I4C has evolved like anything. I mean, and again, the decision of the government is very correct. If you can prevent a crime, why to get it investigated and send it for the trial to the courts or something? So the I4C is doing a very good job. And if we see the latest numbers, I mean, the I4C, when it started in the year 2021, that point in time, I mean, the recovery ratio was just below 1%. Now they have come up to 11% within 3.5, 4 years. And I'm sure actually with the way actually they're doing it, there would be a time actually they would reach to the recovery ratio of maybe 50 to 60% as well. So they are doing a good job. So I think if we can prevent a crime, so we should not be going for any investigation or any, say, legal framework as well.
Fantastic. Now to sum up in the next 30 seconds, I'll just compare the battle against cybercrime with a short anecdote. In the early or mid 80s, the IRA, Irish Republican Army, bombed the Brighton Hotel where Mrs. Thatcher and her cabinet were having a meeting. Unfortunately for the IRA, Mrs. Thatcher survived the attack. She was not hurt. The next day, she receives a postal letter from the IRA, and this is the chilling part. It says, Madam Prime Minister, we need to be lucky only once. You need to be lucky all the time. And I think that is the simile I would draw between this cybercrime phenomenon and the stark reality we are staring at, all of us. Thank you, eminent panelists. Thank you for being a part of this discussion, and thank you, listeners. Post-lunch also having so much enthusiasm to attend. Appreciate your presence here.